Before we go into the podcast, I want to just talk about a business that I've set up with my friend George. It is called the Podcast Introduction Group. So if you want to join and be able to be featured on 24 to 48 podcasts to be able to reach an amazing audience, this is the place you need to go to. Podcast, being a guest on podcasts, is automatically establishing you as an authority and is able to build your personal and professional brand. We handpick of a bank of podcasters that we have to be able to grow your business and brand. We do 100% of everything that needs to be done by my team. You do not need to lift a finger. You are able to expose yourself to new and relevant markets by going on other people's podcasts. You also are able to create brand loyalty. People will love listening to you and coming back to your products or services, and it's able to increase your revenue. So if you want to be able to get involved, you can sign up quickly, registered with an account manager. There's an onboarding call where we target the podcasts that you want to be on, the type that you want, whether it's entrepreneurship, business, health, fitness, whatever it is. We then match you to those podcasts and you can start your journey. We have regular catch-ups with our account managers, and Google ranks you when people search for you. So when people are searching for you, you're able to see your podcasts at the top of the list. So if you are interested in being a podcast guest on multiple podcasts, we are the place to go. If you go to podcastintroduction.com and go and register your details, we will have a quick call with you, match your podcast that you want to be on, and we can then start this process ASAP. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Back onto the podcast then. Just one last thing before we go into the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you about the fact that I have a YouTube channel that has been going for quite some time, and I am recording and releasing all of my interviews with some short videos as well on YouTube. So please do check it out. YouTube on Absolute Business Mindset. You'll see a bunch of interviews there, all the longer format interviews and some short videos as well. So please enjoy that. And here goes with the podcast interview. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey, success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. Get ready to learn from other successes and failures. Today we have Tabetha Sheaver, who is a CEO and EOS implementer. Hello, Tabetha. How are you?
I'm great, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. We have got a lot to talk about, to pack into this podcast. There is a great variety of work that you've done previously, current businesses. Want to go into the area that you're in regarding psychology and burnout and helping entrepreneurs. So there's a lot to go through. So really looking forward to today. As we always start now, this is relatively recently, but as we always start now, the podcast is called Absolute Business Mindset. What does business mindset mean to you?
So I believe that people are wired differently. And I'll tell you a story. I was at a team meeting. There was 5 different practice areas. I led one of the practice areas, and I got really frustrated and upset with one of the other practice directors because I said, I wake up every morning thinking about how I'm going to get my next lead. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads, and he goes, I don't ever think about that. And so it's like, I think it's that, like, you eat, breathe, sleep, you wake up, like, business is fun. It's exciting. It's my purpose. It's my passion. And so I just think about it all of the time. And so my mind is set on business is kind of how I define business mindset.
I'll tell you a secret. I'm exactly the same. I gave up my corporate job in October 2020. So like in the first, I had a small property portfolio and a little bit of coaching work, but went full time a little over a year ago. And I just genuinely absolutely love what I do. I'm very fortunate to be in a situation where I've got businesses which are doing well. The first thing I do is think, and you know, it's something that has actually focused my mind so much more is I was on a podcast with someone and they were saying about the buzzing of your phone. So I've turned off all my notifications on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, Facebook, WhatsApp, everything. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm just having an absolute so much fun being more focused in what I do and not having that constant buzz from the apps telling me things that at the time I thought I needed to know, but actually I've realized by turning them off, I don't need to know half these things are actually happening. So
are you doing time blocking then?
So I used to use Pomodoro, the app, and you'd plan like 30 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. Because it's a little bit harder for me at the moment is because I'm sharing my office with my wife, who's a trained therapist. So we are sort of tag teaming when we need to do a podcast versus her having some clients. So I'm finding that I'm naturally now just doing a lot more deeper work. I'm not necessarily blocking out time to do that. The other thing I don't know why I'm talking about this, but the other thing I've worked out recently is brain dumping at the end of the day on Evernote, dumping what I need to do tomorrow, what I need to think about, what I need to consider, who I need to speak to. That as well is making a huge difference in 2022 because everything goes out of my brain and it is the last thing I do at night because I don't know, it's just that sort of collection before you go into bed. And I'm finding I'm sleeping better and there's less things rattling around in my mind. So 2022, it's been a bit of an experiment with a few things and they're working out pretty well so far, which is a relief.
I love the getting everything out of your head. That's part of my time blocking process is getting it all out, the personal stuff, the business stuff, all of it. But then I've taken it a step further and I actually prioritize versus on like the urgent versus, important versus, and so when you use that and then you say, okay, I need to have a X amount of time that is for those things that are important, but not urgent and making sure that those are kind of first on my calendar. And so, you can turn off the notifications if you have other systems in place to make sure that you're not forgetting the important things.
And my mentor that I had for about 5 or 6 years worked out or had a strategy for prioritizing your day. And I used it for a long time. I might even think about this. It was broken into 3 things. So it was the things that you must do today or this morning, things you should do in the day, and things you sort of want to do, but it's not that important. And you could work through your list for the day, and you do that every day. And while I was working in corporate, I found that really helpful because, again, that sort of prioritization of knowing that I need to do those 3 things must do, and then breaking it down into, well, if I get time, I'll do what I should do. And then if I do get more time or whatever, then we'll do. And then every day it just slightly changes order because things that you want to do become need to do the next time. So it's a great, I'm finding that at the evening, just being able to switch off after that is really, really helping. So
I've also added getting the delegate. What am I going to delete from my to-do list and what am I going to delegate? Nice. Because if I don't do that, then it doesn't all get done and then I get tired and overwhelmed. So
yeah. Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you for that. I shared more than I thought I was going to. So as I was saying, a huge amount of experience and expertise that you've got at the moment, but we'll go to your degree, which was on the surface, it looks like a technology or sort of information technology degree. So it's applied science and technology, graphic arts technology management. So I understand the science and the technology. What's the graphic arts and technology management side?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go to school around the time that Jurassic Park was really cool. Yeah. So that ages me a little bit. And it was just when like computer, CGI, graphic animation kind of stuff came out. And so I really thought I was going to school to do that. And I got into school and I learned all about print, and I learned about film, and I learned that is not at all what I thought I had signed up for. But, destiny has a way of you being exactly where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. I took one flash class, which was the only actual technology part of the entire program, and I absolutely hated it. I just did not have the patience for the details of you literally had to design every single frame. And so I just really honed on to the management side of things. And I think that's the big piece that I took away from it, and what I still use from my work today.
Amazing. And so it wasn't so I get the graphic bits, so like film towards the film, but was there applied science and technology? Were you doing the sort of coding side as well?
No, I actually started off in print and promotional products. And then I left because I got really frustrated because so I was an account manager. And I had a sales rep, and the sales rep would always ask me what was going on with the sales in the account, because I knew everything about the account, and he needed to report to his sales manager. And so I got tired of him asking me and interrupting me and bothering me. So I built a CRM system essentially out of Excel. Right. And I just said, hey, anytime you need it, here's a report. Everything's in there. It's all up to date. Go grab it when you want. So he really liked that. The sales manager really liked that. The sales manager started asking the other sales teams to use this homegrown CRM system. And about 2 years in, the corporate headquarters came and they said, hey, we have this new system we want you to use. And they rolled out a CRM system to us that was junk, right? I mean, if they hadn't actually thought about how we actually did our business or anything, and they didn't have any conversations with us. And so I was really, I call myself an angry beaver. I was running around stamping my feet, why aren't you listening to me? We've been using this. We know what works. And so I ultimately ended up leaving because my cousin, who was an entrepreneur, had mentioned that he wanted to start a mud run company. And I was like, that sounds cool. Let's go do that. And I guess I had that entrepreneurial bug. And so that was my first soiree into to the entrepreneurial space.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show, Meet the Future of Healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, Meet the Future of Healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Right, I'm trying to work out where the mud run section comes into your. So you one of the earliest roles. So systems and processes are really important to you, and management of that. It comes through all of your businesses, about change management, about finding exit. It all makes sense on where you've gone from. But the one I wanted to pick out was your process consultant lead at the Battlegrounds, mm-hmm. where you were working with an entrepreneur. So that was away from a sort of job or within processes. You went and worked for an entrepreneur. How was that in contrast, and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, so he had two of his own existing businesses that were up and running and fully staffed. And this was his special project, right? And it was just me. And so I was figuring out everything. I mean, at one point I was going and watching American Ninja Warrior videos, and I was watching all of these, fun, Wipeout, if you remember Wipeout. Yep. And I was designing these different obstacles. It was Tough Mudder, right? And so I was getting to design obstacles. I was getting to design the path, but I was doing everything from finding the volunteers, coordinating how were all the systems going to work, setting up all the marketing. I mean, I found the contractors. I found myself on some days just calling. We didn't want to spend a ton of money on materials. And so we sourced old telephone poles that had been removed. So I'm like calling all these municipalities like, hey, can you just give us some telephone poles? They're like, yeah, we have 300. And so then I was like in logistics because I had to go find trucks. And I mean, it was every single day. It was literally figuring out something completely new and completely different. And so it was a challenging experience and it was amazing experience, but I was so green. And at the time, like I didn't even realize like what I didn't know. And I made so many mistakes. And ultimately we ended up in a lawsuit. And I learned a lot from that, just about documentation and contracts. And that was really what spurred me to go back to school and get my PMP certification. So I got my project management certification. And that's what was able to soiree me into the tech space because to your point, like my very first job, as people were explaining to me what I needed to do, I was drawing little diagrams and arrows and going, so then I do this and then it goes here and then this person does what? And like people who'd been at the company for 15 and 20 years couldn't explain the process to me. So I guess like that's just the way my brain works. Yeah. And so when I had the opportunity to get into the tech space and like put in, do business analysis, do project management, put in those systems, put in those processes, it was just right up my alley. So, and then from there, it became practice management and growing practices and using all those entrepreneurial skills I had learned at the Mud Run. So it just all the dots connect.
So I had, in my corporate role, I was working for Big Four and I was doing business analyst, project manager, sales and implementation of software. So I get that. I get what you were doing. But you were 6 years at Workflow One, where you were implementing processes and designing and implementing processes. So that obviously that gave you a framework, what you'd studied, to move on into that space of, but like people, I'm not sure if people, like my listeners, get it, but actually when you start designing like workflows and sort of the charts where you're working, like if you go in this direction, yes or no, or it is actually really it's really important for businesses to actually understand where their flow of their businesses are going and the decision tree or where you're making those decisions. Did you enjoy that role? Was that something, because you were there for 6 years, so did you feel that you were developing and moving in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's anything that I was ever like formally trained. This is what you do and how you do it. For me, it was just I wanted everything. I needed logic. I needed to understand it. I needed to be able to explain it. And what I find is actually like, it's not that I love process documentation. What I love is alignment and clarity.
Right.
And when you do process documentation, all the gaps start to show up and all the ahas start to come. And we say, oh, now I get why we were dropping the ball, or now I get why we were, creating horrible customer experiences, or now I see why we were, just bleeding money. And it's like you open up, you uncover, you discover things by asking the questions and then getting it down on paper. So that's the part that I really love, is creating that alignment and that clarity.
Yeah. And as you say, when you do that, you get those points of the decision tree where there is a problem and that's not being supplemented with the right technology or the right people, and you can target those and develop those processes to improve. I get it. I so get it. It was one of the things I enjoyed, as you said, that the logic behind it as well, to actually work out, because in essence you're looking at the big picture. In a way, you're looking at the big picture of the process or the tool, the software, whatever it is. And you get, as you said, you get those aha moments where you're like, actually, I need to put a little bit more presence, people, money, whatever it is, time on to develop those processes. So I enjoyed that as well, actually.
And I have a process nugget for you. So
yes,
So I do this whole process when I'm on LinkedIn. When somebody joins my network, I will actually send them a personalized video, because I think that the face-to-face is so important. And I know everybody doesn't have time, right? And but so in order to do that, then there's all these steps. How do you save it? Where do you save it? Where do you move? All that kind of stuff. So my kids were always asking for money for stuff. And so they're 9 and 11. And I said, they're like, well, where can we get a job? Where? And I'm like, yeah, you can't really get a job when you're under 16, at least in the States, right? And so I wrote up a 27-step process for them to follow where they edit my LinkedIn and they post it and they put it in my CRM. And on step like 17, I was watching them follow the process. And on step 17, they kept getting stuck. And I realized it was because I had said, you go to this system and then you go to this system. And the way I had the wording, I just had the words flip-flopped. And I said, in LinkedIn, click here. And they kept, or before it just said, click here in LinkedIn. And when I changed it to say in LinkedIn, click here, they didn't get stuck anymore. And so the things that I'm learning about processes that when you watch people, it's like little tiny tweaks like that can make all the difference in your business and in your organization. So it's not like there's the value in just creating it initially, but then there's a lot of value in like watching how people are doing it and seeing where they're getting stuck, because it helps create those efficiencies. So
it does.
Just a little fun story.
And it inspires me because I think about my children are nearly 6 and 8. They're 5 and 7 this next month, are both their birthdays. And I haven't really got them involved in the business as yet, mainly because it's under 2 years since I've started or running these full time. And I do want to get them involved, but in a sort of play fun way rather than like anything too serious. So I'm thinking at the moment how to sort of inspire them a little bit entrepreneurially to how they can get involved and sort of develop and understand what I do. I always feel that even when I was in a corporate job, they never really got what I did. Especially in corporate, your title means absolutely nothing to anyone else, barring the people in your company. So I do want to sort of inspire them to be a little bit entrepreneurial. So something I'm constantly thinking about, like maybe, as you say, like a LinkedIn update or sending a video or something like that might be something that my eldest, who's nearly 8 now, could just do a little bit and sort of, I don't know, edit the video or something as simple as that, just to try and get them involved. So yeah, I'll rethink about that as well. Right. I want to move on to where you became CEO of PA Group, which is advising, walking through companies through their journey through digital transformation. So we've moved a little bit further forward, but you took on a CEO role at this company, helping entrepreneurs as well through digital transformation. So how was that step up, and were you going back to your roots in entrepreneurial world as well?
Oh my gosh. So that was not planned at all.
Okay.
I actually took the role there as a practice manager. And so I just thought I was going to help build and grow the practice. We 10X that practice in 18 months. And there was already, so it was owned by a Italian business owner. There was a CFO and a CEO that were in the United States. They both simultaneously, I don't know if they left or got let go, but basically there was nobody running the organization stateside. And so again, I just stepped into it. I just started doing it because it needed to be done. It wasn't with the intention of becoming CEO. It was just like, our clients still have needs. The bank's still calling, wanting to know when they're going to get paid, And so I just stepped into it. And then eventually, obviously, they're like, well, we're going to promote you and we're going to give you the title and all of that. So that was an honor. But I think it's also a testament to like, just do what needs to be done and, it'll get recognized. I had no idea what it took to be a CEO. Like I didn't really have the financials piece as strong as I needed it to be. So I did a lot of going back, doing some training, doing as much education as I could about understanding P&Ls, understanding bank debt, just stuff that you just don't learn. And so that was a stretch for me. And then I think the biggest thing was like, I didn't really realize what it was like to be at the top. And they say it's lonely at the top. And it's like, you don't really know what that means until you're there. And you have this realization, like your husband or your spouse doesn't really understand everything you're talking about, and they can't do anything about it anyway, but you can't talk to your employees about stuff. And so when you need to talk through something or think through something, like, where do you go and who do you talk to? And so I immediately joined C12, which is a Christian CEO networking organization. So that was immensely helpful. And actually through joining that group, that's really when I realized I kind of had my ladder kind of leaning on the wrong building. I had been chasing success. I had been chasing, really just being important, I guess. And there was a lot of anxiety that came with that, a lot of self-doubt, worry, stress, all of those sorts of things. And so it required me to take myself on and then ultimately to absolutely step out from that safety net and that security and start my own, entrepreneurial endeavor on my own. And so how was it? It was exhilarating, petrifying, life-changing, all of those things all at the same time.
Absolutely. And you've touched on your anxiety, and I just want mental health is important to me, and it's something that when people share, I want to sort of bring to the fore. So first of all, thank you for sharing that so far. But so one of the things you said on the research I was finding, that you suffered from anxiety and depression because you felt you didn't really understand where the journey of understanding yourself and finding your purpose. So maybe just talk through a little bit of what you were suffering and sort of how you managed yourself and found that purpose, which I believe when I see the things you've done now that you're doing now, you found really your purpose of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we kind of touched on it that it's not like I went to school. I had a dream, a vision, and I went to school and I knew what that was and I was working towards it. And that's kind of how I had always been taught, right? I grew up with a blueprint. First, you're going to go to high school, then you're going to go to college, then you're going to graduate, then you're going to get married, then you're going to have 2 kids. This is the life you're going to have because that's what the blueprint looks like. But there was no blueprint from a career standpoint. Right. And so I very much felt like I was always just going to whatever role I was in and stepping in and just doing whatever needed to be done. Yep. And that didn't feel intentional. It didn't feel like oh, I'm really good at this or I'm really good at that. It was, I just do what needs to be done. And so I spent a lot of time really trying to piece together, how do all those things fit together? How do you go from printing to mud to tech to project management? And I realized for me, it was really around the communication. It was really around that alignment piece. And all of the things I was doing were just tools to create that communication and that alignment. And I had a lot of, worth issues tied to that. I've got, a backstory of, a father that left when I was very young, the pivotal 7-year-old age and all of those sorts of things. But I had really closely tied my self-worth and my identity to my success. And so, but what I learned is there's never enough, right? It doesn't matter. I literally remember one day after being CEO, standing in our biggest client, and I mean, big client, in the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror and just crying and going, I made it. And I still feel like a failure. And I think that was kind of the breaking point for me, where I was like, I got to do something about this. This isn't okay. And so, therapy, lots of books, quitting doing things because I thought other people needed or wanted me to do them. So being entangled in other people's stuff rather than letting them know I'm here to love on them and support them, but I'm not going to do it for them. I was entangled in a lot. And so, all of those realizations to really step back and say, okay, God created me for a purpose. What is that? What is that thread or that theme that runs through everything I've done? And where do I find joy in what it is that I do? And so, one of those things we talked about earlier, I make my list of here's all the things that need to get done. And as I'm assessing what should I delegate and what should I delete, I'm like, what on this list do I hate doing? And who do I know that likes doing these things? And so that's been a huge, just makes different, because instead of feeling like, oh, well, I have to do this, I'm the entrepreneur, I have to do this, I'm looking at the list and I'm going, I hate doing this, but Pam loves doing this. And so I'm giving her a gift when I let her do those things, and she's giving me a gift. And so we sit here and I'm always like, I love you, Pam, I love you, or I love you, Lee, because I'm not unhappy. I'm not doing stuff that I don't have to do. And so,
So
I don't know.
No, thank you for sharing so honestly. I'm just interested. So when you were standing there and you were upset that you had success, but it meant nothing, there was a hollowness to it. Did you get out of there? Did you quit? Did you have a moment? Because we often find there's a trigger point for people. So I had a trigger point as well when I left you can hear on my previous podcast, when I left corporate to do this, there was a trigger point for that. And other people I've spoken to, they got ill or they broke their leg, or there was some point where they had a break or chose to have a break to do that sort of self-work, that to work on it. So was there a trigger point, or was it over a period of time that was the trigger point?
Yeah, I knew something wasn't right, because there was that like constant unhappiness and frustration and just feeling stressed to the max all of the time. And so I found Jesus and religion, and had really gotten involved and engaged in my church and through C12 and all of those sorts of things. And so was doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying. And I had this moment. I was sitting out, we had just moved to a house with this beautiful lake, and I was just sitting out on the lake, and I literally had an audible, like, God speaking to me moment. And he goes, step out of the boat. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. He's like, I got you. Do it. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how we're going to pay the bills, but it was just such a sense of peace. And it was just such a, like, this is the right step. This is the right next thing. And I would say within probably 5 to 7 days, I had 3 $80,000 contracts lined up. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, this is right. This is it. And so I did it. I went in and I said, all right, like, I just feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore. And I'm going to move on. And then literally the day after I said that, 2 of the 3 contracts backed out. Oh. So I was like, oh, wait. But it was perfect just the way that it happened, because I would have probably drowned if I was trying to do all 3 contracts at once. Right. And so it all worked out exactly how it was supposed to.
So your first endeavor was with Trellis, where you're co-founder, which is enabling business owners exit. So it's a really interesting area in the sense of helping businesses exit and it's a lot of, especially tech, there's people that start businesses, garage, whatever, shoestring, and their idea is that in 3-5 years they exit. How did you sort of help people do that to be able to get that exit and make that exit satisfactory for the entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I actually partnered up with a gentleman who had been in that industry already, and he engaged with me because of my tech background and because of my process background. And he wanted to build a platform that would allow business owners to kind of go on a self-guided journey where they could assess what it is they wanted out of their business, how their business is valued, and then to make a decision about whether they were ready to exit or not. And so the first, couple of years was just all around identifying, like, what is the process, right? What is the journey? And then the second piece was, well, what are buyers looking for so that I can increase the value in the company? And so most of my work was in understanding why and how people think, and building that out into a system and into a process that could be kind of a self-guided journey with different educational resources, and then different advisors that would get recommended along the way. And so that platform is now up in beta form, and it's a pretty cool little tool. Yeah.
And you mentioned there about psychology, and when I was asked you a few questions before we had the interview, you talked about psychology being an important factor of business. And I suppose I'm married to a therapist, so I would say that, but psychology of other entrepreneurs, of business owners, of clients, of people you've got procurement with, and all that is really important. How has it impacted you understanding more about the psychology of business?
Yeah. So again, this came back. I think this sort of all stemmed from that first job that I left, because I was kind of psychologically scarred, right? Because I had tied all this value and this worth to the thing that I had built. And so then when that was taken away, I realized that there was a it was a big change. And so I was like, if I can help people manage that change. And so then it became, well, how do you actually change? And then why do you think what you think? And why do you believe what you believe? And so I just kept asking all these questions that ultimately led to understanding the Kubler-Ross change curve. And
what's that? I don't know that.
The Kubler-Ross change curve is so cool. So it is actually a psychologist, Kubler, I guess Kubler and Ross, maybe it was by two people, I don't know. But it maps out the emotional journey that happens anytime somebody embarks on a change. And so the first stage is that people go into a sense of denial. And then from there, you actually dip down and things get worse before they get better. And so you actually go into a sense of anger a lot of times, or frustration, before you are willing to try something new. And then once you're willing to try something new, then you have to start taking action. And when you take action, then you're rewarded. And then you can start climbing back up in a positive trajectory. And so it's really just mapping out, like, this is the emotional journey that people go on when they're asked to go through a change. And I thought, yeah, okay. It was originally, I think, developed around grief cycles. So if you lose somebody, like, first you're in denial. And then, but I came to realize that all change is a loss of some sort, right? And so what was comfortable, what was normal, what was known, you have to let go, and you have to learn new skills, both of which, take time and effort and energy. And so that's really where my love of change management came in, is to say, okay, what is that path? How do we make that path, normalize that, right? For people, like, when you're taking on a new project, and you feel down in the dumps, and you feel like, I don't understand why this is so hard, and I feel so stupid. And like, okay, it's just because that's just the stage and phase that you're in, and it's normal, and everybody goes through that. And then what are those things that we can do to help people expedite and get through that process as fast as possible? Because there's actually 3 stages to change. There is the ending, there's the transition period, and there's the beginning. And we don't talk about it that way. We talk about it like there's an ending and there's a beginning. Or most of the time we just talk about the beginning. Like, wait till the new thing comes. When you know the new thing's going to be great. The new thing, do the new thing. Just all I want is the new thing. And it's like, we got to grieve the old thing. Yeah. And then we got to figure out, what does it look like? What does it mean? There's that whole storming, norming, performing, right? That's the transition. Like, so, and again, like, so to understand that, to know that, to normalize that. And then from a change perspective, that's applicable to all behavior change. So now take that and apply it to your vendors, apply it to your employees, apply it to your customers. And it's just empathy, right? It's meeting people where they are in the journey. And when you're empathetic, then you can connect, and then you have relationship. And, that's how business gets done, is through relationships. So
can I just make a very personal, and this is completely selfish, can you share with me over email a link or a website or an article to because I don't know how to spell what you've what the name of the study, so please share that with me, because I really think it will make a huge impact on me, on my business, my wife, who's going through a transition as well, away from corporate, which is, it's not often discussed, the impact that it has on your partner and your kids and things like that. So please do, when you get a chance in the next couple of days, drop me an email with the link. That would be fantastic.
Will do.
Okay, so I want to give you plenty of time to talk about your current businesses. So I want to get to the EOS implementer, but first of all, let's talk about Plus Delta, which is you going back to your technology processes roots, trying to create meaningful business results and positive change in the world, which is fantastic. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the business, why you started it, and how it's developing now?
Yeah, definitely. So I was CEO of the other company, saw companies spending hundreds of thousands of dollars implementing technology, and then it wasn't getting used, it wasn't getting leveraged. And so that just irked me, that why are we spending all this time and effort and money and not doing anything with it? And so I started trying to go, well, why aren't people doing anything with it? And so that led me to all the discovery of all the change stuff that I just talked to you about. And so married that really with my project management background and my process passion, and started going to companies and saying, we can do better at driving adoption with these technology systems And so that's really where Plus Delta started, in that get out of the boat moment that I just told you about. And from there, I realized that it didn't matter how good of a process we put or how much change management we did or how much training we offered. If the leadership team wasn't committed and they weren't aligned and they weren't clear, or they were changing things all of the time. And so that is really when the EOS came into play, because EOS is a system for managing human energy, and it really gets everybody clear on the vision and then holds everybody accountable to executing that vision. And so all of it just plays together so nicely. But when you have a good, healthy, cohesive, strong leadership team, then you can push change out throughout an organization by following a process. And so that's what Plus Delta does, is we go, where are you at? Are you healthy? Are you a cohesive leadership team? And we use EOS for that. And then as they are, we say, what are the changes you want to implement to get results in your business? What's the process we need to go through to get you there? And then let us project plan, project manage it, and help you execute.
Amazing. Sounds a great business you've got there. So how do you help entrepreneurs crack through the ceiling that's often, some of it might be themselves, some of it might be judgments, perceptions from other people. How do you crack through that ceiling?
Yeah, absolutely. So in EOS, we teach the concept of hitting the ceiling. So I think the first thing that every entrepreneur needs to know is that everybody hits a ceiling at some point, and you can hit a ceiling in a couple of different ways. The entire organization can hit a ceiling, your department can hit a ceiling, or you personally can hit a ceiling. And so first is identifying which one of those are we tackling, right? And then from there, it's really, there's 5 leadership abilities that are really important to master. And so EOS is designed really to teach and to help with all of those. But it's really around systematizing, getting better at predicting, simplifying things as much as you can. And so to the extent that we can give a framework and tools to help do the 5 leadership abilities well, and that to establish the correct structure is the very first one of those. That is really how we break through the ceiling. What we find is that most of the time, most organizations that we go into, they started off as a couple of people who had an idea, they were committed, they were in it, they were doing everything. And then as they grow, they just keep adding people, and they play on their strengths and their talents. And then what happens though is now you've got all of these super not clear positions. And so if you think about I coach hockey for my son's hockey team, or at least I did a couple of years ago. And I learned that, there's zones. And so if you're on the right, you're supposed to be in the right zone. And if you're on the left, you're supposed to be in the left zone. And it's not to say that, the right wing can't come over and play on the left side. It's just that you need to know that then you come back and you cover them. And then your team expects you to be in your position. So these entrepreneurial organizations, especially, when you get to kind of that $3 million mark, especially it happens again when you get to that kind of $7-8 million mark, right? When you're trying to get to 5 million, when you're trying to get to 10 million, it feels like you're so close and you just can't quite break through that ceiling. A lot of times it's because the right wing player is always over on the left. And so passes are getting missed and people are exhausted because they're skating around like crazy, chasing the puck, as opposed to saying, this is the structure, this is the role that I'm in. And so now we know who to pass the puck to, and we know who to hold accountable. And so there are 5 steps, 5 leadership abilities, but the first one that I recommend that people focus on is the structure. And that is, what is the right structure for the organization for the next 6 to 12 months to help you grow? Not, we have Mark, and Mark is really good at, selling, and Mark is really good at technology. So let's create this box, this role for Mark, where he is the sales manager and the IT director. Yeah. Well, that's great when it's 2 or 3 of you and everybody's wearing all the hats, but how do you hire for that if Mark leaves?
It's right? So important. And it's about scaling businesses, isn't it? It's when you start as an entrepreneur with a few people, everyone just mucks in and does everything.
Yeah.
But there comes to a point when you'll start hiring people that people need to have operations. You need to have the entrepreneur. Like I'm a big believer in the E-Myth. I love the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. That whole point of having the technician, the manager, the operations, and then the entrepreneur as well. And you find in small businesses, that if as long as you've got those covered, you can build a good business. But that step after that to scaling, where you need someone to deal with operations or HR or finance and accounting, you do need to start dropping the generalists and start bringing in the specialists to be able to get that business, as you say, to 3, 5, 7, 10 million.
Yeah. And then you also have to start systemizing things too, right? So that you're creating that consistent experience. And this is also where I see entrepreneurs, like they either just don't systematize at all, or they write a 900-page SOP manual that nobody ever looks at again, right? And so in EOS, we teach something called the 20-80 rule. And so you want to identify the 20% of your processes that accomplished 80% of the work. And
the 80-20 principle is amazing. It's an amazing book. Stephen Coach, I think his name is. You can basically apply 80-20 to everything, like whether it's profits, 80% of your profits from 20% of your clients, 80% of the time you spend by 20% of the clients. It's a really good simple structure to really think about businesses. And I did that with my corporate experience. Was you didn't sack clients, but there were clients that took all of your time, and they didn't pay very well, or they were getting fees quite low because they'd negotiated you down. But they're the ones that were taking most of your effort and your time. The really profitable ones, you weren't maybe spending as much time. So it's that transition of, as an entrepreneur, you should be asking yourself that question over and over and over again, because it's a constant theme in business, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's such a hard thing to do, right? When you're like every dime and every dollar counts, and, and so you want to take on everything, but at some point you got to figure out what your core focus is. So that's another EOS principle that we hammer on pretty hard is, if you think about a ball, there's a sweet spot. And when you hit the sweet spot, it goes faster and further. Same thing with your business. When you identify what that core focus is, and then that's where you hone in, everything just gets easier, because now you can systemize one process instead of 37 processes. And so that's most of the time what I see in organizations when I go in is that they've got 6, 10, 12, 14 initiatives at any given time, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, like, what is the reason that this company exists? Yeah. And what is it that you do better than any other organization in the world? Stick there, right? Yeah. Hone in on that and build your processes around that. Go to market around that. Target those people. And then if you get really good at that, then you can go and you can expand and you can do other things. But I mean, if you remember LinkedIn when they started, what was LinkedIn when they started? Do you remember?
It was a job application.
It was like the simplest thing in the world, right? And now we looked at LinkedIn and we're like, oh, I want to go build an app and I want to build LinkedIn. And I'm like, there's like 37 modules in LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. They started with one, and it was basically a database. It was a Rolodex, right? For you to keep track of that was it. And so start simple, narrow down, figure out what your sweet spot is.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I want to be respectful of your time. So let's move to, what's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years?
Yes. So EOS is absolutely my bread and butter. It's what I love doing. It is exactly who I was made to be, because it really helps me it has a process, it has a structure. And so I love that. And then it's in the 6 key components. And so the people part is very important to me. The psychology and the change, the process piece is very important to me. And so being able to help people first of all, get that clarity and get that alignment, and then bring that down and execute is where it's at. So I am just helping small business owners and entrepreneurs by teaching them the system EOS. And you can go get the book on your own. It's called Traction. It's by Gino Wickman. The whole system's outlined there. My website has resources that you can download, and you can start using the system tomorrow. And if there's anything I can do to just help leaders get better at creating these healthy, functional, cohesive teams, then that's what I want to do, because I don't want anyone to be that angry beaver. Like, I don't want employees to be stomping their feet and frustrated and angry because of lack of clarity and because they feel like the rug's being pulled out from under them. And so that's how I think we create positive change in the world, right? Is getting people to realize that you can get up every day and you can go to work and not hate your job. Mm-hmm. Like, if we all wake up with that, like, wouldn't we be way less cranky in life? Like,
So true, so true. And just something, a little sneak thing that you shared with me on the research, that you're going to be contributing to Shift with initiative.
Intention.
Sorry, Go on, tell me about that.
I just got asked to do a chapter in a book called Shift with Intention. And it's really about, what it takes to be intentional, and then the stories of how I shifted my mindset from being not worthy because of, some of the stuff that happened in my past, and how I've shifted to understanding my purpose, my passion, and getting to do what I love with people I love.
Oh, amazing. Good luck with that. Fingers crossed it works out.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quickfire questions. They don't need a quickfire answer. First one is, what's the best decision that you made?
Marrying my husband.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Structure first. So figure out the structure, not the people. Get the right people in the right seats. You got to figure out what the right seats are first.
Oh, I now it's all making sense. Traction is a book that I read about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's really coming back. Getting the right people in the right seats is so critical. Yeah, excellent. Who helped you most in your career?
Lee Forte. She has been my biggest supporter, my advocate, she stretches me, she calls me on my stuff. So shout out to Lee.
Awesome. Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I took a really, really high interest loan when I first started my business, and I super regret that. Like, I should have just talked to 1 or 2 people, and I didn't even do the math. I think it was like a 68% interest rate or something stupid. Just ridiculous. So yeah, I really regret doing that, but hey, lesson learned.
How did you pay it back? Did you just?
Yeah, I mean, we made enough money. We paid it back. I just didn't make any profit that year, but I didn't have to worry about cash flow. So I wasn't waking up in the middle of the night panicking and sweating. So there was some value to it, I suppose.
Okay. What are you most proud of?
I think that I am most proud of, I don't know. I don't want to sound prideful, but I'm really proud of myself and how far I've come in changing my mindset and my beliefs about myself. It's been a struggle. And so I feel pretty proud that, there's still bad days here and there, but I've surrounded myself with some awesome people, and I feel like I've come a long way.
It's so people I speak to that share about mental health, there's a humility. I think if you come through it and you get out the other side and you change your mindset and you work it out, there's something with people that have been through that, and that's why I brought it up in our conversation, because I think it's important that people that are listening or watching know that it's okay to be not okay, if you know what I mean. And you need to get the right people around you, the right support, whether that's therapy, whether that's psychiatrists, whether that is
medication, whatever.
Exactly. Just and that actual fact of knowing that it's okay not to be okay for a while, I think is so important. So thank you for your honesty and your candor with that.
Yeah.
What does legacy mean to you?
So legacy is, to me, what you will be remembered by and for. And so another great story here, if you have 1 more second.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I got that CEO role, actually prior to becoming the CEO, I was just the practice director at the time. And we had a gentleman that worked for us who had come from a warehouse job, and we were at Blue Cross Blue Shield. We had a huge opportunity, and I put him on it. I was like, you're going to go and you're going to present to this executive team. And the CEO came to me and he goes, are you crazy? You can't let him go in front of the executive board. And he's not an executive. He doesn't have it. And I said, then why did we hire him? I'm like, he knows his job. He knows his stuff. And I was like, we either need to let go of him or he's going to go do this because he's the one who knows it. And the CEO said to me, you will be fired if he botches this up. And I said, all right, game on, let's do it. I supported him. I held his hand. I walked him through it. And afterwards he came back and he told me with literally tears in his eyes, and he was a big boy, right? And he's crying and he says to me, I was always told you can take the man out of the warehouse, but you can't take the warehouse out of the man. And he said, today, not only did you change that for me, he goes, but I told my kids what was possible because of what you showed me.
Yeah.
And like, that is it. If that is all I've done in this world, that one story makes it all worth it. And if I can change his mindset and it changes his kids' mindset, that's what legacy is. So that's why I do what I do every day.
Oh, it's an amazing story. And there's so many opportunities that, like, if that person had not taken that opportunity or refused it because he didn't feel like comfortable in that, I think you can offer and sort of help people with opportunities, and sometimes they can be life-changing, which it sounds like it was for him. As a leader, you need to give opportunities to other people, because a great saying, I can't remember where it came from, but you serve your employees, you don't serve your clients, because you serve your employees will serve your clients. So as a leader, you need to be the person that helps and supports and develops your employees. I think that is often forgotten by so many leaders, especially in the corporate environment. You don't get enough of that sort of support. It's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. I genuinely, I feel very privileged that you've shared that with me. So thank you very much.
Well, again, I don't share it like I did anything special. Like, it's meaningful. And I think everybody should have a story or two like that. And we need to share it, because that's, again, how we make a difference in the world.
100%. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, plusdelta.com. So PLUSDELTA.com. And Plus Delta stands for positive change.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tabetha. Thank you so much. It's been, to be honest, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, this podcast, but it's been so meaningful for me to hear your story and hear making change in people's lives. I think is so important, and a lot of people resist change, but change is a constant. It is always going to happen. So I feel really privileged speaking to you today. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'll send you over that Kubler-Ross change curve.
Thank you so much. I will appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Bye.